Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hacker Talk, the podcast by hackers for hackers. The voice you're hearing right now is me, Philip. I will be your host during today's episode. With me is a fellow Swedish hacker, security researcher for over 20 years, InfoSec ninja, public speaker, former part of Kaspersky's great team. He can often be seen on the Swedish TV, very recently featured in a Swedish national TV show called Hackad, where he conducts various pen tests on corporations, celebrities, and telecommunication providers. Welcome to Hacker Talk, David Jacoby. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. And thanks for having me on the Hacker Talk. Super cool.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. You've been in the InfoSec scene for a while, right?
Yeah, I was actually doing a lunch meeting today. We talked about how long we've actually been in the security industry, and it's over 25 years. It's pretty crazy, and it kind of gives away my age as well. But I've been working professionally with computer security for over 25 years.
Wow. But how did it all start? How did you get into technology and exploring?
The funny thing is that when I was a kid, very young, I wanted to be a stuntman. I was not even interested in computers. But I come from a family where my brother is basically a software developer, a gaming developer, and he still is today. And my dad is a network technician doing sysadmin stuff. And basically there wasn't really anything left for me besides breaking the stuff that they built. So
that's cool.
I got kind of interested in hacking and computer security when I was connected to BBSs as a kid, because I found all those text files and user groups where people were discussing vulnerabilities and sharing tools and stuff. And I thought, that is cool. I want to be a hacker as well. So I started to read about all these different phone hacks. It's called Phreaking, different kind of things that you could manipulate the phone system to do free calls. Because, back in the day, it actually cost money to call long distance and so on.
When the phone system was all analog, right?
It was all analog, and we didn't even have AXA, phone switches or anything like that. That came later on, and I was like, I want to do this. I want to build my own Phreaking box, looking into the different text files. But the problem was that all these text files was written for the American market and the American hackers. They didn't work on the Swedish ground. So that got me like, I need to figure out how this works. And we started to read about more. And then I got into more computer security instead of the phone hacking stuff. So kind of the phone hacking stuff led me to software development and software security.
Oh, that's cool. So you started in the Phreaking part, building blue boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I tried to build all these blue boxes and, I went home whistling around in 2,600 hertz, but it didn't work. When I was a kid, then we started to get this prepaid phone cards. And that was like when the Phreaking scene actually took a big jump in the Swedish underground, where, you can manipulate those prepaid phone cards to actually contain more money or not deduct the money from the paid card, and I started to look into that, but I didn't really, love the fact that it was only about the phone systems. I wanted to do more. I wanted okay, what about hacking software, writing code and that stuff? Because that's, the kind of background that me and my family had. We were like software developers and not hardware hackers. So I was not, very good at soldering or anything like that. I wanted to have a terminal. I want to code. That's kind of what I did. So I kind of lived two different lives. I was very sporty as a kid, hanging out with the cool kids, doing sports, chasing girls and all that. But then, when it was dark outside, I was a different person in front of the computer. That day I was
who's that superhero?
Yeah, this super social guy with tons of friends. I'm not your typical nerd.
Oh, that's interesting that you don't. Normally, a lot of people in the field fit the stereotype.
Yeah, but not me actually. Because I don't know why. It's just I just like doing sports as well. So I did sports and I did computer stuff. That's basically I like both. It doesn't have to be either just computer stuff or just the sports. And then this was during, how old was I? It was like when I was in normal school. And then when I went to to gymnasium, I started to actually work professionally with computer security because I remember I got this account on a Swedish hosting company because I wanted to host my website. It was for a school project.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, you're running, old version of Linux and you have all these vulnerabilities. So I sent them an email saying, hey guys, you're running all these different vulnerable versions and any user can actually run this public exploit and get root access on your machine and you should fix this. And then I got a reply saying, well, Mr. David, why don't you fix it? We're willing to pay you 2,000 kroner a month, which is like $200. Let's say it's $200 a month to maintain the security of our Linux servers. And as a kid,
that's awesome.
16, 17 years old to have 2,000 kroner a month.
Yeah.
Tax, it's still a shitloads of money.
It is.
That's my first real, InfoSec job was as a Linux sysadmin patching servers during the weekends.
That's cool. So you got like a shell account and then you managed to pull off some privilege escalation on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but this is a very long time ago. So you can have different types of accounts on a hosting provider. Some just provided with FTP access, but then if you get like a pro account, you would actually get Telnet or SSH access to the machine. And it's like a shared machine. You had like one web server and one database server and like one file server. But, the machine that you got access to, if you pop a shell of that one, you basically got access to the other ones as well. So, they gave me root access eventually and say, hey, now you have to fix all these vulnerabilities. And so every single day I had to keep track of what the new vulnerabilities that was out there. And, this is back in the day when you didn't really have a packet manager. So I had to recompile the source code manually. And
you had to manually build everything and compile it from scratch. And...
Yep. And document everything. And it was a proper job, being 16 years old to keep track of. It wasn't like a million servers. I don't know, it was maybe 10 servers or something.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was a very good experience too. Because, the hacking community is so different from working professional with computer security. It's like you basically have to grow up and do real computer security really fast. While the hacking community is, it's not so structured, so to say, as having a real job.
Yeah, exactly. So you've been, so then it just continued and you kept pen testing, you kept building exploits and...
Yeah, so this is the story was I was having this job as the sysadmin for this hosting company, and then after gymnasium, there was a magazine called Säkerhet and Sekretess, which is basically like how do you translate that to Swedish? It's like
security and principle, no?
Confidentiality.
Confidentiality, yeah.
This is IT magazine where they some journalist tried to basically expose the 10 Swedish hackers in this magazine, and my passport photo was on the front page together with 9 other people. I was like, this is not good. This is not
wow.
Good. The info in this magazine was completely wrong as well. So they had my nickname and they had my real name, but then the other information was completely wrong. So I actually pinged the magazine and said, hey, I'm this guy, and the information you have about me is completely wrong. Then they invited me to go to a conference called Nätverk and Telekommässan in Kista.
Network and telecommunication conference.
Yeah, it wasn't in Kista. It was Älvsjömässan. It was like Älvsjömässan. It was like a networks telecom fair. And I spoke about the hacking community. And that talk led me to get another job as a pen tester. And then that job allowed me to get another job and another job. And eventually, I was working for this startup called Outpost 24, which did automated vulnerability scanning. And I was building automated vulnerability scanning tools. And then I was there for 8 years. And then that job led me to another job. I was working as a pen tester at TrueSec. And then after a while, I got a job at Kaspersky And now I quit Kaspersky after 12 years, and now I'm running my own 2 companies. So I founded two companies. One is doing pen test and security audits and advisory and so on. And the other one is a startup I'm running together with Bahnhof, a Swedish ISP, where we try to change the way people buy IT security products and security services. So that's a cool experience, going from, working as a teenager, following the entire digital transformation about how the society has changed from being analog, as you said, to now we're basically doing everything with a mobile or a computer, or everything's digital today. But, when we started to work with computer security, you and me, it wasn't that way. It was more analog. You had a modem and, the computer was just basically a dumb device. Now it's completely different.
Yeah, the landscape has changed so much. And I think the hacking community is also kind of changed a bit. I mean, now when Discord is taking over IRC and there's a lot of things happening.
Yeah, I refuse to leave IRC. I'm still on IRC. I'm never going to quit. I'm just avoiding Discord and Slack and all that. If you need to find me, I'm on IRC.
Yeah, and something you're into as well is BBSs, right?
Yeah, since BBSs is so close to my heart, because that's how I got introduced to computers. Basically, that's that was my, I don't know what to say. It was just my passion as a kid. I was connecting to the BBSs, and I'm running my own BBS. Just the community that you share information between people. You can create this forum, which is not publicly available for everybody. And it's like a magnet for people with the same interests as you are. In my case, it was, computer security and programming and that kind of stuff. It was like being part of something special. And that internet took over. People did not use the phone line and call BBSs anymore. You started to hang out on IRC or, different forums online. And now it's something completely different. But since, I don't know, it's more than 10 years back, I've been running my BBSs again on the original hardware, like on my Commodore 64, on my Atari, on my Amiga. So it's just for nostalgia, but the community is still there. That's what's so surprising. It's not as big as before, but it's still there.
That's really cool. So you get internet-facing BBSs running at home.
Yeah, and it's kind of difficult to get internet-facing BBSs when you don't have a network card or anything on the Commodore 64. So you have to build bridges. So I basically built this modem emulator, which runs on telnet connections. You can telnet to a Raspberry Pi, and that telnet connections is then converted to an RS-232 serial connection. So you're telneting to this Raspberry Pi, and then the Raspberry Pi is making a serial connection to my Commodore 64.
Oh, that's cool.
9,600 balls per second. It's crazy. You're sitting at 1 gigabit fiber connection, and you're telneting to Commodore at 9,600 baud per second. Crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But, as I said, the community is still there. It's very, very small, but you have people who are still uploading stuff and writing messages and communicating over the BBSs. It's mostly for nostalgia, of course, but, it's something that I'm very proud of, to be honest.
Isn't BBSs also very strongly connected to the demo scene?
I wouldn't say the demo scene, but I would say to the cracking scene, because if you take like a Commodore 64 or Atari game, specifically Commodore 64, it's the games are quite small. It's easy to distribute. That's kind of what happened, back in the day, that you crack the game and you share that game with, on other boards. But the demo scene is not about, there's no real reason to keep the demo secret or hidden from the public. So I wouldn't say that the demo scene is connected to the BBS scene, but the people who are making demos might be connected to the people who are cracking the games, and that's why it's the same kind of people. Because the demo coders also make cracked rows or intros for different cracking groups. of course they go hand in hand, but I would say that the wear scene for retro gaming stuff still exists. It's kind of cool.
It is. And all these DCC's network are super active still.
That I don't know, to be honest. I'm just connected to the Commodore 64 BBS stuff. So I did this direct connect or file sharing. That I don't know. I have no idea.
Cool. So you did a lot of pen testing, and then you went to Kaspersky. And did you take on the blue team hat then, or did you keep doing pen testing? Has it always been red teaming, or have you gone a bit back and forth?
My passion when it comes to computer security is making security stronger and helping people. And of course, you can do that with pen testing as well, even that's considered as offensive security. But the goal is to hack them and teach them how the hack actually was possible, so they can fix that. My job at Kaspersky, it's kind of funny because first I thought working at Kaspersky is not suitable for me because I don't know anything about the antivirus industry. My background is doing, exploit development, the red teaming. I actually don't know this other side, but the knowledge I had from doing pen tests and red teaming was very useful when I joined Kaspersky because I, of course, did product testing for the Kaspersky products, to make sure that their products was not, easily bypassed or anything like that. And then, even that, it's very blue hat. My job at Kaspersky was to make people aware of the security risks that's out there and making people aware of, the cybercrime landscape so we can protect. And if people choose to protect themselves with Kaspersky products or anything else, that's for me. It's not important, I just want to make internet a safer place and fighting cyber criminals. And that's kind of the job that I did at Kaspersky. I was fighting cybercrime, but also doing a lot of presentation and doing research saying, okay, we can find vulnerabilities, so we can find problems, not just technical problems, but one thing that I often talk about is, for example, password reuse, why this is so important. Yeah, as a pen tester, you always check for password reuse,
Yeah, it's one of the easiest things.
Of course, but it's also very important as a normal individual, like just, you and me or our parents or our neighbors, to understand, because if I would talk to my neighbors or my non-technical friends about buffer overflows and smashing the stack, you lose them, But,
absolutely.
But you can talk about pen testing or the same methods that you use when you do pen testing to the broader audience to actually make a difference, to make them more secure. And that's kind of what I've been doing at Kaspersky. I've been taking my pen test background and transforming it in such a way that I can still, reach out to the broader audience and teach them about this is what you really have to think about, because otherwise this might happen to you. This is the consequences if you don't have different passwords everywhere, or if you don't patch your systems or anything like that. So yeah, for me, it was scary in the beginning, but, it actually worked out very well.
Yeah. And this touches on another thing I want to run by you, because I often get the question that there's people that are working at various jobs and they're trying to motivate their HR or their management to have a security plan or some kind of security advisory or some kind of security measures in place. Do you have any ideas on how to motivate people that are not technical to start or allow a security program?
Yeah, I think there's two different things that you can do, which is very effective. One is to talk about consequences, and the consequences should be aligned with the company that you're running. If you're a part of the management team, for example, it's very important to understand what the consequences might be for your organization. Because if you do comparison and say, hey, I read about a nuclear plant that got hacked. Yeah. If you're an e-commerce site selling shoes, no one cares. Yeah. No one cares. It's not the same consequence, right? Even if it's, it could actually be the same consequence, but you cannot process that information. So you have to speak to the people and say, this is it's your organization. Or our organization. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is our worst case scenarios. I mean, if you can speak the same language as management, then you are most likely able to, make them understand that IT security is important, and you're willing to invest money on it. And the same thing goes for the people on HR or sales or, the different staff that you have in your organization. You have to make them understand how they can be a part of the security process. It's just like raising a kid. If you just goes to a kid and say, this is the 10 rules that you have to follow, and I'll be super upset if you don't follow those 10 rules, you will probably not achieve your goal. But if you can make your children, your employees, understand those 10 rules and say, this is why we have those 10 rules, and this is what will happen if we do not follow those 10 rules, you are most likely able to, have them following, maybe not all of them, but more rules than if you don't. The other thing that you need to do is also talk about non-technical things and also the consequences. So to motivate people is difficult, but if you can make the persons understand how they can be part of the security process. So it's not just with the IT team and the rest of the world. It's like we should all be part of that, because it's not the IT team who only opens the emails. Everyone in the company opens emails. And if there's a malicious link or a file or whatever, anybody can open it. So, and everybody can be part of the security process. Everybody should be part of the security process. But it's too often you see people saying, well, that's their job. And everyone's pointing fingers at the sysadmins or IT department. But IT is actually something that everybody should be part of. And you can do the same analogy as, the things that you see in real life. What if it was, what if when it comes to personal safety, as crossing the street or, riding a bike with the bicycle, you couldn't just point fingers at everybody and say, I want everybody else to wear a helmet when they ride their bike, because then we're secure and I don't have to wear it. No, you have to be part of the entire security solution. And if you can get everybody to understand that, you can come very far. But that is the trick. How do you get everybody to understand that everybody is part of the security process? But
exactly.
nagging and time is good, Again, it's like raising a child. If I have 2 kids myself. If I tell my kids, hey, you need to clean your room, they will probably not do it. But, after a while, you have to tell them every single time, like, you have to clean your room. Otherwise, this will happen. Otherwise, it will be dirty, and etc. Eventually, they will learn. Same thing with, normal people. We have to tell the same message all the time. And eventually, they will understand. And the message should be so clear that they understand why they're doing it.
Yeah. You got to find good ways to motivate them, I assume, to do this.
Yeah, and I think the security industry itself is very good at scaring people as well. Like, oh, look at these super crazy.
Yeah, I think that's like a double-edged sword, because it's been misused so much by marketing people. And just, like you said, you're scaring people to, if you don't use our products, then all these bad things will happen, which...
Yeah, I wrote to say, well, we need you as an individual to help us with the computer security. Like, we should motivate people and not scare people. People should understand what the goal is, instead of just saying, oh, I should not click this link because then I'll get malware or ransomware or whatever. It's better to motivate people instead of scaring people.
That's a good point on it. So something I want to touch upon as well a bit more is you did a talk about hacking consumer devices, and you wrote a really nice JavaScript scanner. Can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. So this is maybe...
That's really cool.
Yes.
Cool tool.
7 years ago. It was very long. When IoT wasn't really a thing. People didn't really talk about IoT. I looked into the devices I had at home, because I had this idea, as an IT nerd, that, oh, I'm secure, I don't have that many connected devices. But it turned out that I had a lot of connected devices in my home. Devices that I didn't even know that they were connected in my house. I forgot that I enabled Wi-Fi on my TV, for example. So when I find out, like, oh crap, I have so much stuff connected, it kind of got itchy in my fingers. I was like, what can I do? Because we know that there's vulnerabilities. We read about vulnerabilities in network connected devices. But what is the consequences? What can you actually do if there's a vulnerability in your TV or in your, fire alarm or, whatever kind of system that you have connected at home? What can the bad guys actually do? And that's kind of what I base all my research on. I want to know exactly the consequences and not just made up, theoretical problems. I want to know for a fact, what can I do? But the main question was, okay, I have all these devices, but they're on my inside. They're on my local area network. They're not connected to the internet. There's no API. There's no nothing. They're not, calling back home to the vendor servers. It was like, okay, how do I hack IoT devices if I do not have access to the IoT devices? So I start to think like, okay, what does a typical network look like? Well, a typical network is, well, remember, this is 6 years ago. Now people who have IoT devices, they probably have 2 separate networks and so on. We become more mature. So when you listen to this, remember that this research is old and not, brand new. But the typical network back in the day was one network. It was like you were sharing the same infrastructure, the same network, the same IP range as your smart TV and your mobile phone and your laptop.
No network segmentation, nothing, everything.
None whatsoever, which is one big chunk of network, Yeah. And you got a router from your ISP, and then you had all your devices connected to, that access point, and that's it. That's all you had. So I thought, okay, how do I communicate with the devices that's on the network? Well, I can communicate with other devices that's connected on the same local area network, such as a phone or a laptop or a normal computer. And what do all these devices have in common? They all have a browser. I was like, okay, they all have a browser. How can I get the browser on that device to communicate with the IoT device in my home? And that's why I decided, well, with JavaScript, you can do a lot of juicy stuff. And the IoT devices are really, really dumb. And their admin interface is just using normal web, HTTP. In some cases, it wasn't even HTTPS. I was able to find some vulnerabilities in these devices that bypassed the authentication phase as well. So you didn't even have to log in to the IoT device to exploit these vulnerabilities. It was remote code execution on a CGI script, and it was no authentication. So it's very easy to automate this process. So I thought, okay, I'll make a website, and on this website there will be a video. And the video is about 2 minutes long. The video is about 2 birds laughing, which is super silly. But, my idea was that you were sitting in the bathroom doing number 2 or whatever. You obviously take up your phone and you click on links and you watch videos, right? That's what
exactly. Someone shares a funny video with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, now I have 2 minutes of your attention, or what can I say, on your device. So the JavaScript started to enumerate internal IP addresses, because I also know that I can, of course, get the internal IP address from the device, but I can also guess the internal IP space, because in 99.9 times of the case, it's 192.168.0. something or .1. something. So I wrote a script that, with just an iframe and a for loop, looked for the port 80 and port 443 and went to a specific URL. And if I found a specific image on that URL, I know that that was the device that I was looking for. So let's say if you take a smart TV, for example, maybe you have the logo of the vendor on a web server. right? And if you can go to that specific URL, you can say, okay, this image, and you could in theory also check the MD5 checksum.
Yeah, hash it
image or whatever.
With something.
You can just build an array of the devices that you want to look for that you have vulnerabilities for. So you will scan through the devices that you know is vulnerable to something. And if you find that device, you send your payload. And that's kind of what the JavaScript did. So I had 2 minutes of attention where in the background, while you were watching this video, the JavaScript was scanning internal IP addresses for a specific URL. And if that URL returned a specific value, I knew that this is the device I'm looking for, and it will automatically send the payload. And the payload was remote code execution on that device. And that code, the payload of that code, basically gave me a connect back shell on that Linux device. So the IoT was running Linux, and I got a bash prompt, and from that I could then escalate privileges and get root, and then it's basically game over for that device.
It's such a nice way, because normally you need to exploit your way or find your way into the system, but here it's just the browser, it routes traffic to other internal devices, and it just works.
Yeah, and again, like we in the industry, we talk about phishing campaigns, right?
Yeah,
and in phishing campaigns, it's people, when people say phishing, they always think it's about stealing usernames and passwords, right? Trying to get the user to log in and give away
Facebook or bank or whatever. Yeah.
But it could also be a link to a website where there's a video, and you look at the video, and in the background it's doing stuff, right? Spear phishing doesn't have to be about stealing credentials. It could be. It's about owning the device. And one thing with the JavaScript thing is so effective because it doesn't matter if you're on an iPhone or an Android or a computer or whatever kind of other device, as long as it can interpret JavaScript, then you're screwed.
Yeah. So if this script were on the manufacturing website of a NAS server or a NAS device that had some vulnerability, and that vulnerability was triggered in JavaScript, it could be. Do you think there's a lot of scanners like that in the wild?
No, I don't think so, to be honest. I mean, I think it's pretty custom because you still need to have the payload for the exact device that you're attacking.
For an exploit, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's very custom. If this attack exists at all in the wild, it's I think it's 100% custom to the victim network. Because, as I said, my home doesn't look like your home, right? And if you're going to scan for every single potential device that is vulnerable, it's going to take more than 2 minutes. So it's better to just limit it to a certain product or something that But this JavaScript doesn't have to send a payload. It can also just send back information about which kind of devices that you're using. Because what you can do is you can basically connect to the different IoT devices that you have in your home on port 80 or 443 or whatever, and get basically report back the title header or something like the HTML code. And then you can say, oh, you're running this type of Synology NAS, or you're running this WRT router at whatever kind of device. And then when you've been enumerating the internal network, then you can attack the network with the second attack, so to say. But it's still very custom and very targeted, so to say. It's not.
How did the vendors reply or respond when you submitted these vulnerabilities?
So the JavaScript is not a vulnerability per se.
I was thinking of you hacked you found some vulnerabilities in your home devices.
Yeah. So what I found was vulnerabilities in my Sony TV, in my Buffalo NAS, in my QNAP NAS, in my Internet ISP's router, and in my printer.
Oh.
And the Sony TV, I actually flew over to Japan to meet with the security team at Sony.
Oh, that's cool.
And they thanked me very much for finding these vulnerabilities, and they actually gave me another TV, their latest new TV.
Nice.
So I can try to find vulnerabilities in that one, which I also did. And then I reported those vulnerabilities and hoped that I could get an even bigger TV from Sony. But then they said thank you, and I got nothing back. But they were still very friendly and very helpful. And I'm glad that we fixed the vulnerabilities. Then with the Buffalo vulnerabilities and the Seagate stuff, they basically said nothing, and they silently patched the vulnerabilities. No credits, no nothing. They just received the information and they fixed the bugs, and they said nothing, basically. I was able to find one guy over LinkedIn, because just communicating with these vendors is a problem, They don't have an email address. Well, they didn't have back in the day an email address where you say, hey, here's where you submit bugs. But I was able to find the CTO of the different companies on LinkedIn and then report it that way.
Nice.
They said that they looked at, they verified the bugs, and they fixed it. But some didn't even reply. They just fixed the vulnerabilities silently. And what else did I find? It was some problems with the routers that I reported to the ISP, and I had a nice discussion with them, and they also fixed some stuff. But I would say in general, people were very helpful and very, they were happy that the vulnerabilities was reported to them. I've never had any problems with any vendors being angry or anything, saying, hey, why did you hack my products? Everybody's been very, very happy and, thanking me very much for finding the vulnerabilities.
That's awesome. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that if there's any vendors listening to this podcast, just to, send an email back to the finder of the vulnerability and thank them and just don't silently patch stuff, because it takes a lot of time to find these vulnerabilities in some cases. There's a lot of hard work being spent doing, vulnerability research and looking into the product, and don't see it as failure just because someone finds vulnerability, and don't be angry with them. Thank the people who are actually reporting vulnerabilities, because the entire underground market where exploits and vulnerabilities being sold is huge. So thank the people who are not selling the bugs on the black market, and maybe give them some free, T-shirt or a hat or whatever, something.
Yeah.
Or actually spending time
making the software better.
Yeah, making your software better. So thank all those people and not just ignore them.
Absolutely. Isn't there a bit of problem sometimes with IoT devices that they have a very small consumer lifetime?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with IoT. And I was actually in the European Parliament discussing these things.
Oh, cool.
To try to come up with in Sweden, we have something called grönt nyckelhål, but like a certification saying, so when you buy a device, you should have like the same thing when you buy food. It says like, this device is valid until this date, security updates will be provided until this date. And
that would be awesome.
It also have like a certain small certification saying that the code or it has been tested by some kind of government institution or something that's saying this product is okay, this product is not okay. Like, because sometimes you buy a baby monitor, from eBay or whatever. It could be some cheap shit. Can I say that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Which can be easily hacked, but then you can have some more premium products saying, okay, this product has actually been, tested, it's been audited and scanned from, it has this small certification. And because, when you go to an electronic shop and you want to buy a new TV, for example, that TV is brand new for you, but you can buy a TV that's basically 1 year old and not supported anymore by the vendor, saying, okay, we stopped supporting security patches for this.
We're not updating the kernel or the software anymore. Yeah.
We're not updating anything on this device at all, because we are now launching the new version of our TV, and that's where we are. So that's what I mean. Like the security lifecycle for this, or support lifecycle for these devices are very small. IoT products in general doesn't have a very long support license. It's like 6 months to a year, maybe. So, and that's something that to think about as a consumer. Like if you buy a device and you connect it at home, how do you know that it's actually going to be updated by your vendor? I think that's information that should be, very easily shared with the customer. And I also tried to force the European Parliament to have like, how you have this installation manual on everything that you buy. Like you buy IKEA furniture and there's a small, paper
how-to guide. Yeah.
How to assemble this stuff. Why don't we have the same thing? It could be kind of generic, but this device has the default username and password. It's admin. You should, according to this checklist, change the default password. This is how you do it. You should maybe put it on a different network segment, or you should do X, Y, Z. And that guide, as I said, could be very generic, but it will still help a lot, Think about the Mirai botnet that we saw a few years ago. It was a botnet based on hacked IoT devices. The way they got access to the IoT devices was through brute forcing credentials.
Yeah, just using default usernames.
Exactly, default usernames and passwords. If we would have a guide say, you should change, or even force the user, so when you install the device, you will log in as admin, but you also have to change password. If you change it back to admin, it's your fault. Then you're responsible for whoever that's taking advantage of that device. But just guiding them very easily on how to install the devices, then we would probably then Mirai wouldn't be as big as it was. It would be much more because people would have changed from the default password, for example. But as far as I know, today we haven't seen these guides or anything in the box of the products.
No, it would be nice to have, like you said, like a stamp or a verifier that this product has been through this checklist and it fulfills all the requirements.
Yeah, it could be simple stuff like, it's using HTTPS. It forces you to change the default password upon installation. It has software updates until this date. Just a small, simple checklist. Could be anything, basically. But as far as I know, we don't have the certification and we don't have the installation guide for most of the products.
How do you keep your personal devices up to date? Do you have any good?
I don't put stuff on my network. I have a Commodore 64, but I mean, I use my vinyl player and I still watch VHS tapes. So I'm not a very digital person that has a lot of stuff connected to my home. I also have different network segments. So my laptop and my devices that I work with is in one network, and then I have my internet-facing devices on a different network. My Commodore servers, my BBSs, and all that. That's a different part of the network. And I mean, every single morning when I wake up, I always check for new updates on my machine. I don't automatically install them, but I verify them that it's something that I need. If there's security patches, I'm a bit of a paranoid person. And I try to reinstall my machine as often as I can. And, I
try to take precautions.
Yeah, bad habit from from working in the security industry for a very long time.
Yeah, exactly. And something that you've been involved in as well is the Swedish community hack.se.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day, Hack.se.
How did that start? And what is it?
What is it? Is, yes, you said it's a community. It's basically a channel, like a chat channel on something called IRC, where everybody can join and talk about IT security stuff. But Hack.se is a little bit special because it was open for everybody, but you would get kicked out if you were not good enough to participate in the discussion that was going on. So it's random people from Sweden discussing computer security stuff, but it kind of have this, I shouldn't say legendary status, but Hack.se was very early in the beginning to, assemble some really smart security people. And some of the people that we've seen in the Swedish security scene today I started some of the biggest IT companies in Sweden, and we've been very involved in making internet safer. But of course, there's also been people from the same chat channel who had a different approach, starting Pirate Bay and that entire movement. But it was a very early, very elitist group of security individuals that, I think it's some way. I really think that the individuals in one way or another kind of changed the way we work with computer security in Sweden, to be honest. And it sounds very cocky to do so. Of course, it wasn't only Hackad. It was, of course, more people not connected to Hackad who helped change the way we look at computer security. But it has some very strong individuals who are very strong with computer security and have a big passion for that.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have channels such as that. For me, it was English-speaking IRC channels, but just have like a community where you can share knowledge and everyone is kind of liking the same things, and you can share exploits and experience with each other.
Of course, and I know that a lot of people say, well, there were some people in Hackad who were cyber criminals, and but it's like I think it's the same thing. You can compare it to a soccer team or whatever. Like if one person in the soccer team acts bad. It kind of looks like the entire soccer team is doing bad stuff, but it's actually that specific individual who is doing something bad.
Yeah,
so it shouldn't affect everybody. And of course, we had the same problem with people who are arrested for computer crime and so on. But that's those individuals. That doesn't affect everybody.
Yes, absolutely. So, do you have any favorite pen testing tools that you think that are open source that you think are underestimated and more people should check out?
Very good question. Since my favorite pen testing tool is basically NCAT. Not Nmap.
NCAT.
Yeah.
Network Catalog.
Netcat. For just sending payloads or receiving payloads. Netcat is I use that. Basically, in every pen test that I do, I use Netcat in one way or another.
There's different flavors of Netcat, right?
Yeah, I prefer Netcat, the OpenBSD variant. Not the OpenBSD operating system, but it's called Netcat, the OpenBSD variant. That's my personal favorite because it has the old parameter syntax, which I know. So every time I use some of the new versions of Netcat, I always like, oh crap. What is the parameter for listening to a port or whatever? But the old school is the same thing. I'm kind of old school when it comes to pen testing. I don't like to use that many tools. And I mostly focus on non-Microsoft environments, so Unix, Linux, and mainframes and so on. And for me, if I have Python or Perl and Bash, then I'm happy. That's kind of what I need. So I don't really use that much open source tools when I do pen testing. I know that Windows people, they're kind of obligated to do so because, passing the hash and replaying Kerberos tickets and communicating.
Mimikatz and all that.
Yeah, you're kind of forced to use those kind of tools because just hacking a Windows machine will tell that the Netcat is not really possible. But if you get a shell access, shell account on a Linux machine, you don't really need that much other stuff than you're basically your terminal, and you can do a lot of stuff. Just using the built-in command lines with find and grep and all that stuff, you can cause a lot of problem and even get root in some cases. So for me, I don't really use that much open source tool. But if I would do any pen test on a Microsoft environment, it's like I would use all those open source tools, like as you said, Mimikatz and CrackMap, exe, and that stuff.
So as a pen tester, is there any like common bad patterns that you see that companies continuously repeat?
Yes. There's a few things, and that's, bad network segmentation is very common. Like you pop access to one machine, and that machine has access to a lot of other stuff. But that specifically when it comes to network layer, that you can commit from one compromised machine, you can communicate with even more machines. That shouldn't be possible. It shouldn't be technical possible. And then other stuff is password reuse and weak passwords that you have. I mean, if you do get inside and you are able to brute force passwords in the Active Directory, for example, just to take your company name and 2021 or 2022 or summer 2020. It sounds so silly to say that, but it actually works. It actually does work. There's always one account that has a bad password, and you don't have to brute force a lot of passwords to be able to find one account that works. But with that account, then you can get more information. And I said, how should I say this? I mean, we often store passwords and sessions and credentials on computers in different ways. You store passwords in your browser, you store passwords or session cookies. Like if you're running Teams, for example, Microsoft Teams, how often do you actually log in? You log in once and then you're logged in, right? So if I can capture that session, which is stored locally on the machine, then I can log in as, with your account on Teams. And in Teams, I might find even more usernames and password. There's like, with one account, you can actually find even more access to other systems. And I think that's something that, most companies fail on. It's like, we know that we shouldn't send passwords in clear text to our colleagues, and we think it's safe to send it over Teams because it's in quotation internal. But if you do get access to the internal network and you do get access to those session cookies, then you can, log in as someone else. And that can give you more credentials to other machines, for example. Network segmentation. And as I said, we store credentials everywhere in source code, in your browser history, in documents, in everywhere. So just looking through normal, like if you would take any company in the world and you would take a laptop or a desktop machine from any employee, I'm pretty sure that you would find usernames and passwords in that machine.
Saved in browsers and stuff like that.
Saved in browsers or in emails or anything still local on the machine. But just, you would grab through log files or chat history or whatever. There will be usernames and passwords stored in on that machine. And not talk about browser. The browser is a very very good thing to look for when it comes to pen testing, because that's where you have, as I said, sessions and you have stored password in your browser and so on. It's very effective.
Yeah, you can often do a lot of nice things with browser exfiltration. I've noticed.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. And I kind of surprised that not more people talk about it. I mean, post-exploitation, let's say that you do get access to the desktop. What can you actually do? That's kind of what I did with the Mac OS talk. It's like, I'm just going to skip forward and just say, okay, imagine that you do have code execution in one way or another. I don't care how. You just have access to the machine. What can you do? Like a post-exploitation talk. Like what can you do if you do get access to the machine? And how do you do those different things?
Yeah. Yeah, browser exfiltration and password managers are also a good mine.
Yeah, because
cracking those files, I often find is a pain in the ass.
One thing that's kind of cool with the Mac OS talk that I did is that it's Mac OS has some nice feature which allows you to mimic any application, and it can also record your cut and paste buffer. So if you do a password manager, you can have it's just a small shell script that lies in the background, because it's a built-in function on Mac OS to copy and paste everything that you have in your buffer, cut and paste buffer. So if you have a password manager and you're copying the password from the password manager and pasting it into the browser, as soon as you copy the password from the password manager, the bad guys have the password.
Just steal it from the buffer.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
From the buffer. Yeah, as a built-in tool on Mac OS. It's not some hacker tool or whatever. It's a command that exists on every single Mac OS installation. It's there. You don't have to do anything.
And that just spits out the buffer.
Yeah. And then you can just pipe it to, again, Netcat and post it to whatever kind of hacker website. Just a loop, that goes through every second you paste everything that's in the buffer.
Yeah, or
also, what I did in my Excel. Let's say again?
A cron job. Insert a cron job into like
or just a shell script that's running in the background. Yeah, as long as it's running as the same user as you, then that's good enough, Because it's kind of weird that way that they have all these different things. And you can also make the shell script verify that the buffer is changed. So if you have the same content in the buffer and you're checking the buffer every second, you don't want to flood your CNC, so to say. So it will only send the new content in the buffer if the buffer has changed.
Mm-hmm. How does it check that?
It's just a if loop,
Okay.
If the buffer contains the same thing as it did previously, then do not do anything. Only do it if the buffer changed. It's just a bash script. Nothing weird.
Is that open source or did you upload that somewhere?
Which one? The bash script?
Yeah.
No, I didn't share it. I shared it with people who ask for it.
Okay.
Because I don't want people to go around in the wall. I told people that this exists, and then I don't have to share the code to do that. But we can talk later.
Cool. It would be a nice one-liner. Let's see. Yeah. Or that's been longer if that's affordable. But yeah, cool. Where do you see the future of like device security going and consumer security? Do you think people are gonna get better at patch management, or?
It's actually a very good question, and just in these, let's say 10 years as I've been looking into IoT stuff, it actually become much, much better. The vendors are much better at not writing stupid code. Consumers are more aware that IoT products might be vulnerable to stuff. So we are actually becoming much, much better, but we're also getting much more devices connected to our home. Now it's not just, smart TVs or video gaming consoles. We're talking about sprinkler systems. We're talking about all different, everything's being connected now. And every time, someone builds a new apartment complex that is much more digital or computerized, so to say.
Smart lights and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, everything is and that, we are becoming much better. So I'm not seeing a very, dark future in front of us. I really believe in that the work that we as security professionals do, even if you're a pen tester or a very good software developer or whatever kind of, if you're a SOC operator or whatever, we are doing very good because we are making the world a better place. And we're fighting cybercrime much better. We're getting legislations that's helping us fight cybercrime. Yes, we're seeing much more advanced attacks as well. But in the long run, I really have to believe that we're doing good, that we are actually, we're not winning, but we're doing very good. Because I think it's a war that cannot be won. I compare it with normal crime. We will not.
Do you think it's a forever run? Sorry for interrupting you, but do you think it's like a forever running cat and mouse game?
Yes. Okay. Unfortunately, it is, but we have to start securing the things that matters, and that's our society. Like, we went from a world when we started to secure devices. We had, security solutions for devices, but we have to stop securing devices and start securing societies instead. And the same thing with, your personal security as an individual. Yes, it's a little bit about device security, but it's also about your digital lifestyle. Like, what's your digital identity? How are you securing your digital identity? You're maybe a user of Facebook or Twitter or dating apps or whatever kind of, social media. you have no control over that, but you have to work around that and secure your lifestyle. So even if your account to Facebook or Twitter or Tinder or whatever gets compromised, then you are, in quotation, secure. Your entire digital life is not, completely ruined just because one flaw. And I think with that said, we are becoming better and better, and we're having more, solutions who can help us move towards that. We see big consulting companies, we see, government, we see legislations helping us to both make the world better for individuals, but also for as I said, societies, I know that, a lot of governments are helping the inhabitants, what do you call it? The people who live in that region or that country to become more secure,
The citizens.
Citizens, thank you. And then we also have the support from law enforcement with everything from, your normal police officer who are getting more, knowledge about cybercrime and identity theft and all that stuff. And then we have, the secret services and the actual military who's also doing a lot of good things when it comes to cyber. I think we are working in the right direction with cybersecurity, because it's not just nerds and hackers and those who are focused on cybersecurity. It's basically everybody who are, thinking and talking about cybersecurity.
Do you think we're moving to a world where more data and data will be open? Because I feel like we moved from like private forums where exploits were shared to then we get like Millworm, and now we have all these public exploit websites, and now even governments are saying that, hey, we're going to release our tools open source, some of them, such as NSA with their various forensic tools. Do you think...
I disagree with that statement. I think we're even more...
segregated.
Yeah, because when was the last time you saw a public working exploit being shared on, some mailing list or something? Most of the stuff now that's being found is first reported to a bug bounty program or to the vendor and so on before the public exploit is released. I remember back in the day, there was first an exploit and then there was a patch. Now there's a patch and then people write an exploit for it and they attack everybody who did not install that patch. Yeah. I actually think that in the past 20 years, it kind of changed, because we are better at reporting things, and the companies are better also at investigating and identifying if someone is targeting them with a 0-day vulnerability or something. But today, thanks to the responsible disclosure programs, I think that people more often report the vulnerability and then talk about the vulnerability when the vulnerability has been fixed. Then back in the day, there was like, oh, I found a buffer overflow in SendMail. Here's my proof of concept code. And then people said, oh, we need to fix this. And then they fixed that.
Yeah.
So I actually think that we are better at reporting vulnerabilities today than we were 20 years ago. But we still have, then on the other side, we still have this entire community with selling and trading exploits that we didn't really have, 20 years ago. Then it was hackers was trading exploits with hackers. We were not selling exploits to the highest bid.
Yeah, there weren't really private exploit brokers out there that are making an arm and a leg selling exploits.
Not in the same way. No, not at all. It was more about the community. Now it's more about money. But I think we're better at fixing vulnerabilities before we talk about them. In general, of course, there's 0 days, and we've seen all those 0 days. But in general, I'm talking very broadly. Like, I think most security researchers report it and then they talk about it.
Yeah, it ties into like you mentioned, the disclosure policy.
Yeah, I remember the full disclosure mailing list, and then suddenly it becomes like a responsible disclosure. And I mean, yeah, I'm asking you, like, when was the last time you see someone just randomly just post a fully working exploits on a mailing list and say, hey, look at that.
That was a while ago. That was not yesterday.
No, it of course happens. I've seen some local previous escalation bugs, but the bug has still been fixed, But at the same time as the patch is out there, then they publish the code. It's very rarely I've seen the code being published, the exploit code being published before the patch. That's not very often compared to 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think that ties in. Yeah, also like we talked about earlier, the connection with the vendor, because I've had some clients that I've been doing pen tests for, and they basically said that, yeah, we told the guy that submitted the vulnerability to fuck off, and now it's public and we have a really big problem.
Yeah, that is a big problem. Like, don't tell whoever that's finding the bugs to fuck off, because as you said, they will publish the exploit and people will use that exploit to cause problems on the internet. It's better to just give them. I really like the bug bounty concept. That didn't exist when I was finding vulnerabilities. I got nothing, nothing for finding vulnerabilities. But as I said before, it takes a lot of time to do the research, write the code, make the proof of concept code. I really think that all companies who do get reports from the community should give something back. Then it doesn't have to be money, but it could be
merch or t-shirts.
If someone hacked the PlayStation, give them a PlayStation, or whatever. If someone hacked, whatever, give them something back, whatever it might be. Something like if you're a vendor for some software, give them that license for that software for free, or whatever. Something.
Yes, thank them. Absolutely.
And also give them creds for finding the vulnerabilities, because that's, at least in our world, it helps. Like if you are a security researcher and you can say, hey, I found those 10 vulnerabilities, then, it helps with credibility and a lot of things,
Yeah, it's something to put on your CV or website, or it builds up your credibility. Absolutely. Yeah, so I think we're running out of time here. Is there anything else you would like to talk about or jump deeper into?
Oh, I can talk about this for so long. It's basically what I do from when I wake up until I go to bed is computer security. So maybe we should do a part 2.
We should
talk about whatever kind of topics.
Absolutely. How do you keep up with the latest vulnerability research and the latest exploits, and how do you stay up to date?
A very good question. So there's basically 2 ways. One way is that I do research myself, which is very helpful, because then if I'm researching whatever kind of thing, let's say it's IoT security, and I need to figure out a way to communicate with a specific protocol, I have to read about that protocol. I have to do the actual research myself. The other way is that I really like to share the research that I'm doing. So I go to conferences and I talk at conferences, and I'm not the only speaker at that conference. They say that there's 10 other speakers, and I can learn whatever they have to talk about. So being a speaker, going to conferences helps me a lot, because I get knowledge for free. Basically, I can take part of every all the stuff that other security researchers are doing. And that's very helpful.
You're not only doing conferences, you're actually in a Swedish TV show as well.
Yes. Well, I'm often in media, actually. And, it was this TV show called Hackad, where me and 3 other ethical hackers, we were able to hack some cool companies and show the consequences of hack and how it's actually being done with social engineering and, password reuse and brute forcing and writing exploits. It was super cool to do that. And it's really an honor to be part of that TV show. But then I also comment on, in normal media, like in written paper or on the news channels, if something happens, because I have a strong belief that you cannot solve computer security with only technology. You need to inform people about the threat.
Have the awareness of it.
Yeah, and if I can, be part of that, then I'm very thankful and very happy about that. Because if we're going to solve this, if we're going to make people, and then when I say people, I'm not talking about your average security researcher. I'm talking about
the average Joe.
People, the average Joe. Then we have to, reach out to them and explain, like, okay, now this happened. This is the consequences, as we do with all other media. Like if there's someone being shot, or if the stocks goes up or down, or if whatever kind of things, there's always someone commenting that on media. And I really love that there's a strong community with me and other, people sharing that. I shouldn't say responsibility, but the insights from the security industry to the broader audience. I like that. There's other people who are doing a tremendous job as well. It's not just me. We're a few people that often gets quoted in media, and they're all doing a very good job.
Yeah, you're all very, very knowledgeable, which is nice to see that there is this in Swedish media.
Yeah, and I like the fact how people, when I say people, I mean us, how we tried to make IT security understandable for everyone, because it affects everyone. So we need to be there for everyone,
Yeah, absolutely. It's all such a huge part of our lives when everything is connected and online.
Yeah, I wish we could solve everything with code, but we can't. It's not possible.
It's a social problem.
It is. It is a social problem. It is I don't know where I've read it, but security is a mindset. It's something that's just been stuck in my head for a very long time, and I don't know where I saw it first, but it's so true. That security is a mindset, and IT security is not so much different from your physical security. There's so many analogies that you can do. Like one that I really like is, let's say that you cross a street. You walk to this crossing, but you don't look to your left and to your right, and you get hit by a car. Then it doesn't matter what kind of gun or knife or whatever you have to protect yourself if you get hit by a car, because the gun or the knife will only protect you against certain threats, and looking to your left or right will protect you against other threats. And the same thing with IT security. Like if you have a strong password, that will protect you against some stuff. But if you have, good patch management, that will protect you against other stuff. If you have a strong mindset and not clicking on every single link that you see, or that will protect you against some stuff. We need all of that. We need the technology, the tools, like the guns and the weapons and pepper spray or whatever. But we also need the mindsets to not run out on a road when we can get hit by a car. And we shouldn't just go out on the internet without having a strong mindset.
Exactly. Have the proper mitigations put in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So, David, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed this episode, and hopefully we will make you will come on Hacker Talk somewhere soon in the future.
Cool, man. Thanks for having me. And you're doing a good job. I mean, that's it. We need to reach out to everybody, and we need people like you. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Awesome. Ciao.